Hi there, welcome to Visual Communications. I'm Curtis Stage. This is Multimedia 110, and this is a welcome video. This is kind of a video to get us going for the class. So this is probably the first video you're going to see, so welcome to this class. It's going to be a great, fun semester. You're going to see a lot of videos like this. In fact, almost all of your lectures every week are going to have a video in this setting right here. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about kind of visual communications and what that is. And so, I want us to think about kind of in your mind, you've probably thought, well, what the heck is visual communications? What am I going to be doing in this class? And actually, after the first couple classes, your first couple weeks, you're going to really understand what this is. But today, we're going to kind of give a little bit of an overview of visual communications. So today, what we're going to talk about is let's define what visual communications is, what you can expect from this course, and then we're going to and that'll be talking about the syllabus, obviously, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Canvas. So let's define visual communications first. This is a good place to start. Most people who join this class, again, don't know what we're doing. People always ask me, what do you do in that class? And so I want to kind of really cover that. So first thing is visual communications, right? Is the communication of ideas through visual display of information. So it's primarily associated with two-dimensional images, which could include art, graphic design, photography, and film. And this is important to know because a lot of people think that visual communications is just graphic design or just art, but we're going to talk about film, cinema, and we're going to also talk about photography in this class as well, and concepts and theories that tie all these things together. So it's going to be really fun in that we're going to be able to kind of understand what the connections are between these mediums that are all different, but they all help us communicate. Now, visual communications is a lot different than other kinds of communications. You don't think about it too much, but we communicate all the time. So we're communicating orally right now. You're hearing me talk or you're seeing me talk, but that's going to be a lot different than what we're going to talk about in this class. So music doesn't count for visual communications. Theater doesn't count for visual communications, although it is visual. So sometimes it's a little, sometimes a little confusing as to why theater might not count for it. And sometimes I guess there's overlap. And so maybe this semester we'll talk about where that overlap occurs. So one of the things that we will kind of get into is it's becoming a process of organizing, simplifying, right? Visualizing information in strategic, relevant, hopefully clear and compelling ways. And I'm going to say in this class a lot of times visual communication and design, and I'm actually going to shorten that to VCD quite a bit. So you're going to see in a lot of the things online in our readings where I won't spell out visual communication, by the way. I'm going to just call it VCD, visual communication, and its design. And this involves the exchange of messages, right? Information. Messages are information between sender and receiver. So on a basic level, there's messages that are going back and forth between a sender and a receiver. And it's about using tools in a way that the messages can be mutually understood. So when both parties understand, then essentially you've got the visual communication. Where communication breaks down is when parties don't understand each other. And in fact, your first readings that you're going to have are going to be on cave art. And this is, we today don't really understand. We can only kind of guess as to why these people from 40,000 years ago made the work they made. But if someone came here, 40,000 years from now and uncovered our society, they'd probably go, what are these symbols, which we call logos? They probably wouldn't know what they meant. If you think about a Pepsi logo right now, if 40,000 years from now, Pepsi didn't exist and you just came here from another planet, let's say, you would have a hard time knowing what Pepsi was, what that symbol was. And so that's going to be the same thing as cave art. But for the most part, when we're visual communicating, we want to have a shared knowledge system as to what those are. We want to make sure that both parties know what they are. And where visual communication breaks down is where we don't know where those are. So it's going to be really important for us to kind of talk about that this semester on how visual communication works, right? Where it can come up, where we can kind of develop tools and to hone those messages so that they are mutually understood. So we're going to focus on the messages and tools in this class and why they're important and what makes them successful. That's going to be key. We want to use these tools to become better artists and designers and filmmakers and photographers and storytellers. So really when it comes down to it, storytelling is key. This is where we connect with other people. If you've taken my classes before, some of you are new and maybe this is the first class you've taken with me, but if you've taken other classes with me before, you know that I talk a lot about storytelling. We have since humans probably became human, we've been telling stories to each other. When we first started building language, to connect to each other, right? And those stories have become more and more complex as technology's gotten more complex and as our language system has been built up over time. So visual communications, though, is where it started. We started communicating with each other way back, when humans could actually figure out how to make tools to draw on cave walls. And now look where we're at. We're communicating in an amazing variety of ways. So, why does visual communication work so well? I guess that would be a good question that we'll talk about throughout the semester. But why it might work so well is, and we're not going to get in detail about this today, but the human eye processes images really, really quickly, way more quick than the written word. And so making visuals are the most immediate. So making visuals the most immediate form to communicate ideas and information and acquire knowledge and memories, this makes sense, right? Because images, for some reason, our brain kind of processes those much, much quicker. So when our brain's processing images quicker than words, we're able to get information to someone much quicker. It doesn't necessarily mean the information is always better than words. So I'm not saying that visual communication is the best form of communication. But certainly it is probably the simplest and quickest form of communication. So it's going to be important for us to understand kind of how that works. Now we're not going to get into the science of how the eye works and synapses in the brain and kind of how, basically this diagram here where the eye is connected to the back part of the brain and that's where the visual information goes. We're not going to get into details on that. That would be maybe for a science class. But we certainly are interested in how that works and that it is an important aspect. So it really helps us understand that, that visually communicating a message, that if it's happening visually, just understanding that that happens quick is really important. So like I said, our first form of visual communication, which you're going to have readings on this week, happened, 40, 60,000 years ago. Artists were not really considered artists at the time. Were painting on cave walls. We don't know exactly why they're doing it. We have ideas, so you'll find out about this in the readings, but they were expressing themselves through these visuals. And they're all pretty amazing, especially for the limited tools that they had. And at this point, we don't really even know if these early humans had language. So we have no idea when they were creating those amazing paintings whether they could talk to each other in a complex way like we can now. So they had to communicate on some level. And they made some pretty amazing art. And so you're going to find out about that this week. That's going to be in your week 1 reading assignments. So, from then to now, it's amazing. I mean, going from cave paintings, fast forward now, 40,000, 60,000 years seems like a long time. But in the span of the universe, it's pretty small amount of time that we've been on this planet. But in that amount of time, we've really progressed quite far to where, of course now we're, going from caves to the latest in, technologies, including AR and VR. What's AR? That's augmented reality, and VR, of course, virtual reality. People are always using visuals to communicate. Right? And so these communication forms are going to get, who knows where they're going to be at 40,000 years from now, but certainly we've come a long way and we're communicating visually in complex ways that sometimes are difficult to understand. And in this class, we're going to try to uncover what some of those meanings are. You go to a place like Times Square in New York, I mean, you're overwhelmed. Our society is kind of in some ways overloaded with visuals, right? And so in some ways, it's a detriment that we have so much visual stimulus in our society. We always have our devices with us. We're always on our computers, we're always on our phones, on our iPads, whatever. We're connected all the time. So we have visuals coming at us nonstop. The real key is to understanding how do we create visuals that are impactful and tell a story and don't litter the landscape, I guess, of our culture with more. I guess we're not going to be able to avoid that. We're going to always be creating more. But, this image in Times Square, it's just, this is what it looks like when you get there. It's overwhelming. And we have to think about all these different ways that we're creating it. And I also want us to think this semester about that it's not just about art and design and photography and film, but within those mediums, you're talking about ads and infographics, and you're talking about the internet and even web design. And so there's a lot of interesting things that we can talk about within this world of visual communications. And so this class, I hope it expands our knowledge in this area. So it's going to be really exciting. I think this is going to be a great class for you, and you're going to create a lot of projects in this class and a lot of assignments that are going to support this. So next we're going to get into the actual syllabus for the class, and that syllabus is located in Canvas. And of course, if you're watching this video, you're obviously in Canvas, and so we're going to get in there, and I'm going to have another video on kind of how to use Canvas in detail. Right now we're just going to go over the syllabus like this would be the first day of class. So I'm going to switch over to the syllabus now, so you guys can see that, and you don't need to follow along with it now on your Canvas, obviously, because you're watching this video, but later I'm going to encourage you to go back in and read kind of the things that we talk about in here. And so I'm going to kind of zoom in, zoom out, and talk about some specific things and just kind of go through this syllabus just like it'd be the first day if you were in person in class. So obviously, Canvas, some of you are very familiar with Canvas. Some of you, it's the very first time you've ever used it. And don't worry, you're going to get very comfortable in here because you're going to be using it all semester. And this is where the whole class is going to exist. Everything that we do is going to be related to Canvas. There's going to be some things we do outside of Canvas and some other software, but for the most part, this is the hub of the class. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is kind of this area right up here, of course, in the syllabus. So you can see in Canvas that we're in the syllabus area, and this is my information right here, which is pretty important, I guess, for you. If you wanted to come to campus or you're on campus at Los Angeles Mission College, you can always reach me in my office on the second level of the Arts Media Performance Building, which is in 202I. And there's my phone number and my email, but probably you're going to contact me using this Canvas the most. And we'll talk about that in another video when I go over Canvas in more detail on how to use Canvas. So just for sake of time, I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of Canvas. We're just going to talk about the syllabus here. You can also connect with our program. We have a Facebook page, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. These are great ways to find out about our program and what we're doing. So even though this is an online class, I want to invite you to kind of know what we're doing here in our building on campus, and also invite you to any guest lectures that we have on campus if you can make it to our campus. I realize that many of you might be not close to our campus and taking this class, but I think most of you are near campus and most of you are Mission College students in general. So I want, connecting with us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are great. There's our LAMC multimedia website. That's going to have all the information about our multimedia program. Possibly if you're taking this class, you're either in our multimedia program or you might be in our communications program here at Los Angeles Mission College or another college. So this class is going to, it's an online class. It's going to take you some time every week. Don't think that because you're in an online class that this is going to necessarily be an easier class. You're going to expect to work in this class probably 4 to 10 hours a week at least. The projects aren't going to be intensive, but you're probably going to be working quite a bit through the readings and watching my lectures, and those are going to take you, a couple hours per week, and then responding to those things. And then you're going to have small assignment activities every week and quizzes. So you're going to spend some time really outside. You're going to spend some time, on this class, working on your projects and your assignments, and just working in Canvas. So expect to spend 4 hours a week at the minimum, because that would be what this class would run as, is 3 to 4 hours during the week. And then you may spend more than that. Some weeks you may only do an hour. Some weeks you may be done with everything in 30 minutes. You may read through everything and finish everything and take the quiz, and you're done in 30 minutes. You're done in an hour. But probably not going to happen every week. So just be ready. Online courses is fairly intensive in terms of you have to be in charge of your own scheduling. I'm not scheduling things for you. I'm releasing stuff to you every week, but it's your job to kind of stay on task. And so that's going to require you to kind of build out your calendar. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. You can also take a Multimedia 500 lab with us here at Mission College. If you are a Mission College student, I highly suggest signing up for the Multimedia 500 lab. It's a 1-unit lab, and it allows you to work on projects in class, in a classroom situation, and get help from a tutor. If you are not a Mission College student and you have no way to get to our campus, then that's okay. You're still going to do fine in the class. You just, you wouldn't get any in-person help, but I'm going to have a lot of tutorials for you. I'm going to have a lot of opportunities for you online to follow along with tutorials so you understand how to use some of the software that we're going to use. This is more of a research class and more of a theory class and less of a hands-on class in terms of making things. I'm not expecting all of you to be designers and artists yet, and some of you have taken my classes before and you're fantastic and you're going to do fine on the projects. Some of you have never done anything before and you've never made anything before, so you may think, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about the software. Don't worry, the projects that we're going to have for this class are fairly easy in terms of I'm not giving you intensive graphic projects where you have to become a graphic designer. And some of the projects you're going to do with your phone. You're going to take pictures around town. Your first assignment is actually taking photos and uploading them to a website. So that one should be pretty easy. We all are pretty familiar with taking phones with our cameras. So you can take the lab, and that link right there that's on our syllabus will take you to our lab info, so you can sign up for that Multimedia 500 in-person lab. And in that lab, of course, you can spend as much time as you want during the week working on whatever you want to work on, but certainly you'll work on stuff for our class. There's our Mission College statement. I'm not going to go over that, but I do want to just, paraphrase here that, this is a campus that really encourages lifelong learning. It's a supportive environment, and also we want to encourage you guys to become critical thinkers. And so it's really, just kind of there for you to see what our statement is, and I really agree with that statement. We have our program learning outcomes in multimedia. I'm not going to kind of go over those in detail. You can read those on your own. The course description, let's talk about that a little bit. Again, I've kind of been giving you a little bit of what this class is about, but it's a fundamental course on the nature of visual communication, right? Emphasis placed on historical, philosophical, theoretical, cultural, practical aspects of art, design, and media arts. Students integrate theory and some applied technology. So again, you're going to do some projects and some assignments on a variety in basically kind of 2D design and photography. You may do a little video as well. This class is introducing you to visual communications. It's not oral communication, speech, drama, or music, right? There are no prerequisites for this class, but again, it's a good idea if you take that Multimedia 500 lab, the 1-unit lab, so you can work on projects and have access to the software. We use Adobe Photoshop primarily on our campus, but I will be introducing you to a free software called GIMP, and I'll have some tutorials on that too when we get to our assignments and projects. Multimedia 100 is a great class. That's our introduction class to multimedia, and that really is a Photoshop class, so I encourage many of you to take that class, and some of you have already taken that class. Some of you are taking this class out of order, and you're taking it towards the end. So again, this class is to further, help you guys become creative individuals, right? The contents of this course are going to range from art, design, photo, film history, theory. We're going to cover a broad range. It's important, this class is designed to help students examine their own values and interpretation of visual communication, right? As you guys engage in developing an understanding about what art, design, and all that stuff is, and what it can be about, right? I expect you guys to make new discoveries about your own personal desire to make this stuff. So, and even though you may have some experience in art and design and technology, this class is a beginning level class. It's going to be taught like as if you've hearing all of this for the first time. And in fact, many of the concepts, even if you've taken classes from me before, some of it will overlap, but for the most part, this is going to be stuff that doesn't overlap. Early on, there'll be some things that we talk about like color and Gestalt theory and stuff that I talk about in some of my other classes. So if you had me before, you may hear some overlap, but we're going to go into much more detail. You're going to read a lot more about it. You're going to have a lot more in-depth discussion about some of the theories. So it'll be important to take this class early on if you're a multimedia student because it's going to kind of set the groundwork for your other classes that you'll take with us here in multimedia or media arts on another campus. So I have my teaching philosophy in here. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I encourage you to read this. But really, I'm here to help you guys out. I'm here to create a community that's collaborative environment. It's fosters your imagination, your creativity. I want you guys to get a passion for the arts. I want you guys to also be reflective, critical thinkers about your own work and about what you're doing. And so that's my aim as a teacher. And I hope that you guys get excited as students about the stuff that we're talking about in this class. All right, so teaching methods. We're going to be doing videos in here. You're going to see lots of videos every week, hopefully. You're going to have a video lecture that you're going to follow along with, and then you're going to have group critiques. You're going to analyze and completed assignments and works in progress, and you're going to do internet research. And then I have a little link there on how to take good notes. You're going to probably want to keep a notebook for this class. It could either be online or in a regular notebook with pen and paper. But I have a link there that will take you to that with just some bullet points on how to take good notes. This class is just how you're evaluating on. You're going to be primarily quizzes, 3 in-depth projects, some research and discussion groups, some small assignments and readings. So everything is compiled into your grade, and I do a standard 90, 80, 70, 60% grade there. So there's the breakdown on that. We don't have a textbook in this class, but there's going to be a lot of reading in here. So I'm pulling things from all over the place for you guys, and they're all going to be in the form of PDFs or files within Canvas. So get ready to be reading quite a bit. Now the reading I think is actually great. I think it's fun. I think you guys are going to like it. So don't get worried about that. There's going to be a lot of videos in this class, like I've said before, and all that stuff is going to be located here in Canvas in modules. Every reading that I give you is going to be required. I will give you some recommended texts, and I will let you know when those are recommended, right? And throughout the semester, I'll say, hey, if you want further information about this, it's not going to be in your quizzes. It's not going to be anything that we may talk about it in a lecture, but I'm not going to include it in any of your grading or any of your quizzes, but it might be just further reading to kind of like support what we're talking about in class. I'll kind of give you that in modules. You'll see those. It'll say recommended text each week, and not every week I'll have recommended text, but a lot of weeks I'll have recommended text and video links. There'll be things that I'll find online. I'll like read this article or watch this video link because I think it really is important to the discussion that we're going to have. So you'll see lots of that happening. While there's no recommended or no required text, which is good because that would be expensive. We're doing everything here in Canvas. Software, like I kind of mentioned earlier, we are going to be, well, first of all, you need to have internet access for this class. So if you don't have internet access at home, you're going to have to find a place that has internet access, because otherwise how are you taking an online class? You can always come to our campus and use our computers here in our multimedia labs, or you can go into the LRC and use our computers there. You're going to also need to have Adobe Photoshop or have access to it, or another recommended software which we're going to use for this class that's free. So you can also use it. It's similar to Photoshop. So and I'll talk about that. You'll see it in my tutorials. So whenever I do a demo, I'm going to do a demo. I'll do it in Photoshop and in this other program called GIMP at the same time. GIMP's kind of a knockoff of Photoshop. Photoshop's industry standard in creating computer graphics, and designers and photographers use Photoshop. But GIMP is kind of a ripoff of that. It's good. It has most of the tools, and we're going to be using basic tools. We're not going to get into complex things in this class like masking and things like that, and color correction and things like that. We're going to be doing basic kind of collage work and things. So whatever tool you use is going to work really well. Like I said, a lot of times we'll be using our phones to take pictures, or DSLRs if you want to, but certainly you can use your phone to take photos. So you're going to be using software in this class a little bit, right? I mean, for some of our assignments and our projects, don't get worried about that. Again, I will have some basic video tutorials on those. And I just mentioned in here that you're going to want to save your work on your own computer just in case, because you're going to upload work, but you're going to want to save it to your own devices. So you're going to want to, whatever things you make, if you make it on our campus in our labs or you make it at home, you're going to want to have a folder on your computer where you can save your work that you're making. So that's important. You don't want to just upload it and then not have it. You want to save your work because you might go back to it. You might need to resubmit it. So you want to make sure that you have it saved in a folder on your computer, or you can save it on our shared drive on our campus if you're coming to Mission College to take that 500 lab. You can save any of your work there too. So just be in the habit of saving. You're also going to create an account with Adobe Behance. We're going to be and some of you have already used Adobe Behance, but you're going to be uploading your work, your assignments, and your projects to Adobe Behance, which basically is a portfolio website that's free, that's made by Adobe, who also makes Photoshop. And that way, I'm going to be able to see your work up online. You're going to be able to start building up a portfolio for this class. And other students are going to be, from our class, are going to be able to see your work too. You guys are going to be able to comment on each other's work and give feedback through Adobe Behance. You're also going to give feedback on Canvas, and you're going to upload things to Canvas as well, right here in your assignments and in your projects. There'll be a submit button. And I'll go over the details on how both of those things work in separate videos. Okay, so we're not going to cover all that today. That'll be in a separate video. That'll be how to upload to Behance, how to upload projects to Canvas. And it's really easy in both of those instances. So don't worry if you've never done anything like that before. You're going to be fine. So back to here. Let's see, activities, requirements, right? We're gonna, this is gonna be a lot of stuff that we're gonna do every week, right? We're packing a lot in, and you gotta keep up with it. So there's weekly quizzes. Every week you're gonna have a quiz. Most of the time the quiz are 10 questions or less. If you've been doing the readings, if you've been participating in the discussions, if you've been watching the video lectures, the quizzes are going to be very easy for you. If you do not do any of the readings, if you don't watch the lectures, you're going to do poorly on the quizzes, and the quizzes are a big part of your grade. So you're going to want to be aware that every week you're going to have a quiz. All those quizzes are going to be in Canvas, and you're going to be able to see your grades in Canvas of the quizzes that you take, so you know what your progress is. But the quizzes are probably the most important part of the class besides your assignments and projects. We're also going to be doing some short essays, and you might even be doing some video presentations yourself. And you're going to have weekly assignments. These assignments are going to be short, probably things that you can do in less than an hour. And then you'll have bigger projects that will take you a little bit more time to do throughout the semester. There's going to be 3 major projects that will be throughout the semester. And there also might be some other activities that might happen, like you're going to watch other video resources besides mine. There'll be some media presentations I may have. You're probably going to be reading all of the messages and announcements. You're most likely going to visit a gallery or a museum this semester too. You're probably going to walk around town and look for visual communication all around you. So just be aware there's going to be a bunch of scheduled activities every week, and I really want you guys to keep up on those scheduled activities. It's important. So like I said earlier, you're gonna expect to work 4 to 10 hours a week in this class, which would be the equivalent of if you were taking a class on campus. It would be about the same thing. Most of you who've taken my classes before at Los Angeles Mission College you know how much time you spend in class. And this one's going to be a little bit more in terms of it's going to have the reading component that a lot of our classes don't have on campus. So again, more reading in this one and more responding in discussions. So you really want to stay active within Canvas. Every day you're going to be doing something probably. So just be ready for that. It's not hard stuff. It's just going to be something every day, and I'm going to suggest stick with that. Back to this here, we've got, I've just got some nuts and bolts about submitting your assignments and requirements. I'm not going to go over that here in this video, but it is in the syllabus and I want you to read through that closely. Here's our student learning outcomes and objectives for Multimedia 110, and I'll let you read through that on your own as well. And I'm just going to kind of skip down because you'll read through this syllabus again on your own, and I want to kind of go down here all the way down to course performance and participation policies. Right, you're going to want to every week be participating, like I've just said in this class. Poor study habits are not a good thing. If you are not organized, if you don't have any self-discipline, this class may be difficult for you. You're going to spend time, like I said, every week, and it's going to be on you to kind of keep your calendar situated. I'm going to suggest that you actually maybe have a calendar. You can use Canvas's calendar, or you can kind of create your own calendar in Google or Microsoft or wherever you want to do that, or you can have a paper calendar. But I really suggest kind of writing down when things are due, because there's going to be different due dates every week for different items. So it's really important for you to stay focused on what's due. It's a lot of little things every week. When we get to the big projects, I'll have less of the little stuff, but it's really important to kind of stay on it. So I just want to emphasize that quite a bit. You're not going to do well in here if you miss a bunch of weeks in modules where you just don't participate, and you're going to maybe want to think about dropping the class. If you stop participating in the class, I'm going to know it, but it's not my responsibility to drop you. And there's a couple drop deadline dates that you need to know about. So the first drop deadline date is September 9th. That's when you can drop the class without getting a W, and then you also don't have to pay the fees for the class. You get your fees back. If you go past September 9th, you've paid the fees for the class, and then the next drop deadline is not till all the way till November 18th, and you'll get a W for the course, and you still have to pay for the course. So just be aware, September 9th, you'll get an idea. It's after our first week of the class. You'll get an idea of what this class is going to entail, and you're going to like it. Trust me. But if you stop attending, just like an in-person class, if you stop working in the modules in Canvas, I'm not going to drop you. You're responsible to drop yourself, and you want to drop yourself before that November 18th. I will nudge you, but again, sometimes people don't stay up on the communications. I might contact you in email. I'm going to contact you through Canvas. If you don't check those things, it's not my responsibility. So just be aware, it's your responsibility to drop a class, and that's online and in person as well. Face-to-face classes, the same policy. It's on you as a student to drop the class. So I just want you to be clear about that. It's going to be important. So I kind of go over that in this, and I will have to give you a failing grade if you don't drop the class. So if you're still on my roll and you haven't completed and finished the course assignments at the end, and I haven't seen you or seen from you, online, virtually. I won't see you probably in person. But if I haven't seen you virtually in 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks at the end of the semester, you're still on my roll. You're getting a grade in the class, and that grade's going to be a failing grade. So here's some more of our dates, just to kind of let you know. The real big week is Thanksgiving week. We probably won't have a lot going on Thanksgiving week. I won't have a lot of assignments for you guys. Probably that whole week will be very minimal. I may have one short video for you and a small fun quiz, but I probably won't give you anything big that week. But every other week you're going to have something important. So I think that really kind of gets us through the syllabus, and this also gets us, I think, through our first video here in Multimedia 110, Visual Communications. I'm really excited for you guys to be in this class. I hope you have a great time in here. I think you will. Feel free to contact me. Some of you, it's probably your first online class, and I want you to feel really comfortable in this class. And hopefully I give you enough materials so that it makes you feel like you're having an interaction with me. I know that a lot of people take online classes and there's no videos. I don't know how that works. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be coming at you every week with videos, so it's going to feel like you're seeing me in a classroom situation. And, but also realize that you can reach out and contact me through Canvas. If you have questions about things, contact me. You can contact me through my email, right, and on the website. So we'll talk to you. This completes this video, and then we're going to be in Module 1 this week. You've got a lecture to watch this week, so get on that. We'll see you soon.